call a customer, see how they're doing, check in on them, thank them. When in doubt, call a customer.
Welcome to the Howie and Beastmode podcast, where we discuss all things business, including growth, strategy, and execution, as well as personal and professional development. Let's join Howie and Beastmode in conversation.
I'm so annoyed with how afraid I am to lift weights. Well, I didn't want to tell everybody else is because I didn't want to sound braggy, but I actually lift weights 4 days a week now. Like 2 hours, here, 2 hours there, or close to it. And then I do have one of them, which is like an hour, like 45 minutes. And it's like, I'm facing fear for the beginning of every set, right? Especially on two of my workouts are very hard. It's shrugs. I'm terrified of shrugs. It's bench press because they hurt like fire. They just hurt so much. And then my bench press and my flies, which are on different days. But anyway, my point is, like, I've been thinking about what is the deal with me? What is wrong with me? Why am I afraid of working out? And I think it's some of those reasons we talked about earlier. It's the pain of it. It's the fear that I won't be able to do as many as last time, which last night I didn't. I was dramatically under the last several times. It's weeks of setback last night, right? And I don't know why, but like, at least I worked out, but I don't know why it sucked. I could do way less than I've done in weeks. I don't know. And that's one of my fears, is that I won't be able to. I don't know why that's a fear, but
probably because
what?
Probably because you've been working. And so you have a different mental, physical fatigue because you're working. And so when you go to try to work out, you don't have as much energy, you don't have as much remaining left over.
That is so smart. And that goes into our topic tonight, which is facing giants and the friend aspect. Yeah, you're right. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah.
The problem is, like, it is a giant, but think about it. Like, what if I plan on working out until I'm dead. Like, I plan on working out until I'm like 100 or whatever, however long I live.
Yeah.
And do what?
I said a ripe old age.
Yeah. I just plan on, I look at these guys, this guy who's like 85 and he's still running, and, this guy who's 90 and he's like lifting weights, and, you got to be smart at that age. You don't want to use free weights anymore. You want to use machines and do safer things. But everybody, I don't want to grow old and grow whatever when I can just stay going, And so the giant, or the opportunity for me, is to set in order behaviors that'll have good long-term outcomes, and there's benefits and blessings along the way. The problem is that there's fear with that. And so tonight we're talking about the fact that some of our big opportunities in life are giants, and giants are scary. Mine's such a stupid, embarrassing one to share on a podcast, but like, what do you mean you're afraid to work out? Like, that's so weird, but it's because of the pain. It's because I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to do what I did the time before, which I just described happened last time. But then, what we talked about earlier on in our prep is what you just said, which is, you just gave me the insights. Like, maybe because you have a job now, there's not as much energy to hit your max reps because you've given during the day a lot. That's a very wise statement. And that's part of what we're going to talk about tonight, is tapping into certain things that help you face those giants, because the giants have opportunities. So I appreciate you. That actually already benefited me.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're just going to continue going down that path of, we've been talking about discovering new opportunities. We talked about, what does it look like? What do new opportunities look like? Okay, now I've discovered it. Now I'm getting through the door. Okay, now I've gotten through the door. Now there's a struggle, right? That's what we talked about last week. And so this week, is oftentimes these new opportunities, they look like an amazing dessert. They look like this fantastic feast, but oftentimes there's a struggle that comes with it. There is that happiness, that wonderfulness of being down a new path and being on a new opportunity. But with those new opportunities, there's often giants that are standing in the way, and, we're oftentimes it's a point of decision. Am I going to turn back? Is this too difficult? Am I going to give up? That's one option. Or is this, oftentimes we start contemplating, is this the right avenue? Should I have gone down this? And so it's really kind of that first step, and what do we do? So where are we starting off tonight, Howie?
I think understanding that it's kind of like flipping the script, which is that understanding that the opportunities that are in front of us sometimes, we don't recognize them because they're giants and they're big, but that giant is meant for you and me to be an opportunity. But we have to sort of like recognize it first and be willing to confront that.
Yeah, I think we have to, in the same avenue, whether it's a mindset shift, whether it's a flip the script, I think we just got to recognize the new opportunities are going to come with giants. They're going to come with them. It's a package deal. It's a buy one, get one free. You get a free giant with your combo. And I just think that we got to understand that. And that's okay. It's meant to be there. And so, okay, so now I've recognized it's meant to be there. I'm going to get it. I'm going to face it. And so it's almost relaxing, I know. And part of this is because I'm thinking through it at the same time. I mean, the last week's episode, when we were talking about the world's on fire, we're all going to die,
That was so great. Best title ever podcast.
It is. It's the best title because it's so true. It was such perfect feelings of what I was feeling last week, and same thing this week, man. It's, you would think after, facing this many giants or overcoming this many obstacles that you'd get a reprieve, but sometimes you don't, and it's just there. It seems like a season for me of giant facing. And at the same time, it's not just giant facing, it's giant slaying. I've slayed a couple of giants and you're just looking for a reprieve, some time of peace. But, there must just be new ground that needs to be conquered, new foundation that needs to be laid before you can kind of take your throttle,
Wow. Okay.
What do you think?
Every new opportunity has a giant within it.
Yeah.
I think that's true. I have some, so with this new job, there's some big stuff that I have to accomplish. I'm a sales manager, so there's a lot of stuff, big numbers that I need to hit, big team, different personalities that I have to get used to and figure out and learn how to navigate and not screw that up too much. There are many giants in front of that. And I think facing them is part of the move,
Yeah.
Not having it all figured out. I mean, diving in, I'll give you an example. So right now I've got these big numbers to hit. I barely know what I'm doing. And I took the time this week to plan a territory planning session, which we will be doing next week. I'll be spending 45 minutes to an hour with each of these teams, and we'll be doing territory planning, right? I didn't really know what I'm doing yet, but I mean, I've been there a month, so I have enough to be conversant at least and let them talk. But I'm going to face the giant in this case by creating territory plans. And so just taking, 2 or 3 steps down the road. And so I think planning is a good first step when you confront the giant, you decide to confront the giant, which is your opportunity, even though it's scary. And then you can, start off by making a plan. And it's not going to be perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I say we. I think I have to talk about risk.
Yep.
In here somewhere, and
Let's
that
do it. Free flow it.
Going off script, but I don't want to live a life that doesn't have the risk. I don't want to live a life that's giantless, that has no giants. As much as I hate fighting giants and I'm getting tired of, slaying one to have to go find another one, I don't want to live a life that doesn't have any giants. I don't want to look back on my life and realize I didn't take any risk. All the opportunities that I stepped into were below my capacity, were below my ability. I never stretched myself. I never chose to battle that giant. And so thus I was, I made it, I escaped through, but I never grew. I never expanded my capacity against adversity. I never expanded my ability against perseverance. I never had to do that. I don't want to, as much as frustrating as it is right now, I don't want to live a life the latter. And I think that is what gives me the desire to want to persevere.
Got it. So there is a fulfillment, there's a feeling, and there's a sense of fulfillment from tackling risky things. That's cool, actually. I hadn't thought about that. I will say, when I was between jobs, there were definitely, there was a purpose in a sense. Finding a job was a full-time job, or a strong part-time job. But, now that I'm in a job where they really need me, and there's big opportunities and big problems and stuff to go, help everybody out with, there is that sense of risk, and there is a sense of life that comes from that. So I can see what you're saying.
Yeah. And, there's that, I think it's a fallacy. I think it's a worldly perspective. How fast can I get to retirement? How fast can I get to shutting it down? And I just don't want to live a life like that. I don't want to be 40 and shutting it down. Just like you were talking about, I want to be 100, still pumping iron. I want to be 100, still
Totally.
slaying giants. I don't want to live a life where I'm taking my foot off the gas.
Not happening.
And it's what our makeup is. That's what really drives and motivates us.
Yeah. Sure.
But it's the same thing in business. If there's a day, a month, a year where it's just no giants, I've been there. I was there for a decade, and it was awful. And with the moment I recognized it, when I started fighting giants and started recognizing that I had lived a decade of my life just trying to avoid giants, I realized how meaningless and how frustrating my life was.
Wow. It's good.
I mean, and that's the real S right there, right there.
Yeah, it is. Well, one of the ways that we can find those giants and take the risk is by, finding opportunities that other people won't take on. And in every situation of life, whether that be a nonprofit or a ministry or a business and career type scenario, there's always going to be something that, well, we tried that before, that didn't work. Or, well, we were denied the last time we asked for that. Or, well, this is just how it is, or whatever. And, I think we do have to have a sense of patience with driving change and driving improvement and killing giants for sure. We can't expect everything to be done tomorrow. But I think the way you identify some of those giants is, what's a problem that no one else will touch? Usually that's pretty big.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe it's just big because that boss is a bully. I mean, I hate to say it. I know a lot of you out there have a boss that's not great. I wish everybody had a boss like me in my company, who is culturally unbelievable and very kind as a culture, actually, by design. but I know a lot of you don't have that. So how do you tackle situations where maybe there's a person who's a giant, or there's a problem that's a giant, or there's a project that's a giant? And I think that, you know, a lot of times you can spot those because it's something that nobody else wants to deal with.
Can I give you a real fresh, real life example? So Cleanup, nonprofit that I started that you're a board member on, we deal with homelessness. It's not the only thing that we deal with, but it's a big one, right? And it's a problem. It's not just a problem here locally to DFW. It's a problem all across. And I know that I get frustrated that we as society, or we as individuals, we're looking to manage homelessness. I've tried it before. We've tried that before. We spent money here. We've done that, and nothing is working. And so let's just manage homelessness. Let's let it be acceptable at this percentile. And to me, it's unacceptable across the board. There's nobody should ever be in that position, and it should be unacceptable, and we should do something about it. And what Cleanup is doing is we're going a unique, creative way. And this is not a cleanup spot, but it's saying that there's a giant, and I don't know how loving people and giving people the opportunity to take a shower is going to change it, but we're going to go down that path. Because, you know, managing it should not be an option.
Very cool.
You know, whatever, and whatever problem it is that you're dealing with may not be as real life and as, you know, tear jerker as that, but seriously, you know, your sales quota that everybody just says, hey, you know, we never hit it. You know, it is what it is. You know, we'll do our best. And, you know, at the end of the day, no, exceed that sales quota. You know, just don't just take the norm out of it. Don't just let it be what it is. You know, I don't know. I'm a little stirred up on it.
Yeah,
so
good. Yeah, I think we have to find a way to tap into, you know, what stirs us up and gives us the energy. You know, I think when I see what is, you know, I do try to tackle some of the giants that are out there that I see in the business world. I do try to tackle those. When I find that I'm not sure what to do, I pray.
Yeah.
You know, and we talk about spiritual stuff on this podcast sometimes. But I highly recommend it. You know, I really do. But, you know, I think getting started, you start to identify where the problems are with that giant. But if you just sit there and you're afraid, then you're not going to get started. In the case of Cleanup, Jordan started very modestly by providing cleanup gift bags to people on the street, and then eventually was able to move into a mobile shower center, and still does gift bags too to help people. But it's like, at the time, if you would have seen, you know, if you drive downtown Fort Worth right now, I mean, it's like the city within a city. I mean, there's hundreds of people out there. I haven't been to Dallas, Jordan. I assume it's worse.
Yes.
Or similar. Okay. Yeah. And so you might be in San Francisco and it's really bad, or LA, where it's like definitely a city within a city. But Jordan just said, well, I can start here. I can start with something small, but something that matters an awful lot to the people that this ministry touches. But if you would have just been overwhelmed by that and didn't start, then it wouldn't have had an opportunity to grow and make a difference. And the same thing with your business. If we see that giant and then we see that opportunity and we start, then we can see where the edges are and where the problems are. I'll give you an example. I brought something to my VP today that has been tried before, and it kind of was, you know, wasn't successful the first time, or was shut down or whatever. but he said, you know what, with fresh eyes, he was just kind of thinking maybe it's time now. Cause I brought it up because, I'm new. So I have kind of fresh eyes. I'm seeing everything for the first time. And so
Yeah.
I'm kind of an asset to him to be able to show him stuff as an outsider, until I become a real insider. For a little while longer, I'll still see things with fresh eyes. And so, but yeah, he said, maybe we should look at doing that again and trying that another way, because it was, obviously a new person is bringing it up again. So, but I think if I wouldn't have addressed that giant or that business problem, then he wouldn't have had an opportunity to interact with me on that and tell me the history and say, maybe we should try it again a different way. So I think, facing the giant's a really big deal. I think also, um, by facing it, you find out where the issues are. And then that's like a to-do list. You found the issues, because it's not actually a giant. We don't deal with actual David and Goliath that will actually pin you to the ground. So it's just, it could be risky for your career, would be about the most things would become, but I think, facing that and learning where the edges are and learning what the issues are is really big. Prayers are really, really good idea that we talked about. And then just courage. I think Jordan showed courage last summer in a pandemic, starting this nonprofit, and it's grown and he makes a big difference now.
I appreciate that. Um, kind of piggybacking off your perspective, and you're providing fresh eyes to your new job. Oftentimes we need that. I need Howie to come look at this giant with me. I need you to look at it and size it up. Doesn't mean you're critical, because your giant may not be my giant. They may not be the same. So if somebody's inviting you in to give a perspective, don't need to be critical just because it's not yours and you don't understand it. That doesn't matter. But what you can do is, just like with Howie, Howie's saying, I'm struggling a little bit with my workout. It's not the same, I don't have the same intensity. Well, Howie, you've been working, not that you weren't working, hustling to get the job, but now you have the job, and it requires a different level of exertment and energy. And, you can't just take breaks whenever, and people are relying on you, not just family, but now you got other people. And so, it makes sense, but it took that vulnerability to share. It took that fresh perspective. So
that's a really good, we haven't about that very much in a few months. I think that is a really good, I never thought about it, but when you're facing the giant in your business or your career or your nonprofit or in life or health or whatever, being able to be vulnerable to somebody who can handle that could be quite an interesting avenue to get feedback that would show you another angle.
Yeah. And I know for me, and I'm being pretty vulnerable here, and I think I kind of touched on it, is I think one reason why we don't share our giants is for fear for you to say that's not a giant. Like if I brought something to you and said, Howie, I'm really struggling with this, and you're like, are you kidding me? That's not a giant. That's a that's barely a normal sized person. You should be knocking that over. Beastmode, what's the deal? And so we have maybe an unrighteous fear that might happen, or we're not. And so it takes away that vulnerability aspect. So what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's good.
That ever crossed your mind? I don't want to share this because I'm concerned that this person's not going to understand my giant, or is going to.
Oh, well, when you word it that way, yeah, I've had that thought a lot, for sure.
Yeah, they're not going to understand my giant. They're going to downplay my giant.
Yeah, that's why it's important for each one of us to try to be available for that conversation. It makes me want to talk to my team tomorrow or in the coming days, probably not tomorrow, but in the coming days, and say, hey, I want to hear if you're having a hard time. I don't think I've thought to ask that but I'm new, but I haven't thought to ask that. So this is a really cool reminder. And I do care. I never thought of it,
Yeah.
but you made me remember that's a big deal. But yeah, I think fear of rejection is a great reason to not share vulnerability about, hey, I'm facing this challenge at work, or I'm facing whatever. And that vulnerability is a real risk, man. So yeah,
Yeah.
I would say I would probably wouldn't share a lot of times just with anybody. I mean, once I got to know them and they were trustworthy, and they're the kind of person who cares, they've got some wisdom, they've got some experience, then yeah. But I think that is a key reason why people don't share.
Yeah.
And not everybody can be trusted anyway. Let's face it. I mean, it's not like we don't share very much and collaborate on business problems or personal problems for that matter. It's not like we don't do that for no reason. I mean, we have been, everybody's been through this or that, and they have evidence for sometimes that's not good. So yeah, it's a tough balancing act, but I think we probably pivot too much on not sharing.
Yeah. Yeah. I know I'm getting better at trying to share more, you know, not just surface level, but, put a shovel to the ground, dig deep, you know.
Yeah. 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 Last week you were sharing, just staffing challenges and stuff like that, and just, working on the business and different things that need to happen, and all that kind of good stuff. And, I've thought about that. I've prayed about that a time or two. And, so I think that vulnerability was a great bet, you know, now I'm not saying everybody would hear that and then carry you around in their heart for a week. Okay. But I think there are people that would,
Yeah.
and I think in general, it's pretty good therapy to be able to talk about it.
Yeah. I I don't know. I always go back to, if I share something, if I'm vulnerable with you and it doesn't resonate with you, and maybe I get a negative response, then maybe I need to go back to the old adage that you're not my client. You're, you're not the friend in my corner, and leave it like that. The same way that I would approach that, if I'm calling a potential client, wanting to push a product or a service and they're just not interested. Should have, just realize, hey, you're not clarifying that. I appreciate that. Move along. I should do the same thing when it comes to vulnerability in business. Find the right people who are my clients, who are in my corner, and be grateful for weeding out the ones that are not. I would rather find out that they're not in my corner than think they are for a decade and they're really not.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I learned in my job search was also that you can have friends that are not the best at necessarily following up or checking on you. You know what I mean? So there's also this grace that we have to give to friends and to family and to colleagues, that not everybody can necessarily be there all the time, or like you want them to be, or whatever it may be as well. So there's kind of a balancing act. So if they're just not available, that's one thing. But I would agree, if they're very insensitive about when you do share, then yeah, that's probably not your tribe.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that, now the thing about it is like, I think we can have an opportunity though in that situation, um, where we can say, okay, well, they're not my tribe, but can I still give them value? You know what I mean?
Mm.
And how can I be in a healthy place? Because Jesus even said, pray for your enemies, let alone just like somebody who maybe was rude about some feedback, you know what I mean? Let alone that, but like actual enemies. And I think that, there's so many business principles of why would he say that? Why would he say pray for your enemies? And that's because you really do overcome evil with good. You actually do by converting it, and you basically, you create, Proverbs says, he who wins souls is wise, So I think sometimes those people who aren't in our tribe can still be an opportunity for us to grow and learn how to deal with difficult people and provide them some value. But I've had them. I have had those, I can remember their names. I mean, so I really do relate to this. I can remember first and last names of one or two people that I never won over. I could never win them over. Up until one point in my career, I thought I could win everybody over until these couple of people. And then I was like, wow, it doesn't matter how nice I am or how hard I work, I cannot win them. Yeah. And it was a shocker for me. I thought, but it's just, people are really messed up out there. Sometimes it doesn't matter how kind and thoughtful and hardworking you are, it does not matter. It's just them. Something inside, people bring their own baggage, I guess.
Yeah. So to close things up for today, what's a final thought on facing giants or on new opportunities? I think, this one may be closing out this series. So anything you want to leave our listeners with today?
Yeah, I'll say that, if you don't face the giant, then the giant will grow and you will shrink. Mm. And so, and I realize a particular business situation might have hundreds of giants, but if you don't face some of those giants, then you won't grow, and you'll become this meek, not even meek, meek's actually a positive. You just become this kind of mousy, fearful, cloistered, hermit, who won't face the world, won't face tough things. So I think what we have to do is we have to choose some of those hard things. And maybe that's prayerfully and with good counsel from friends and wisdom, wise counsel. But I think we should face some of those giants for the sake of growth. Because if we don't, then we will shrink. If your first reaction to conflict or to a really big task is to shy away from it, then that's missing an opportunity for growth, and I'm not sure it's good for you.
Yeah. So good. Well, I think we're going to close up today's shop on Howie's thoughts there, and just really kind of let that resonate. I know today was a little deeper. we were a little bit more vulnerable all across the board. And so I hope you take that to heart. We hope that you let it resonate with you. Find someone that with and share these giant opportunities with, and as we always say, don't give up. So keep going. So
good luck.
Out. Until next week, my man.
Where can they find us?
They can find us so many places. We're continuing to expand where we can be found. Right now we're live streaming on 5 different platforms, and it's going to continue to expand. So we're going to be on TikTok, but obviously our main locations are YouTube and Facebook and Spotify, iTunes, things of that nature. But also you can email us at howieandbeastmode@gmail.com. If you have thoughts, questions, need encouragement, insights, wisdom, we'd love to engage with you in any capacity.